Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at something pretty amazing called GenoLab.
GenoLab, yeah.
And, it's funny.
And it's GeneLab.
Oh, it is?
It is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So GeneLab, what is that exactly?
Well, imagine a vast digital library, but instead of books, it's filled with information about how life changes in space.
Okay.
It's the first comprehensive database of its kind, and it holds tons of data from space flight and analog experiments.
So what kind of data are we talking about here?
We're talking omics data, so DNA, RNA, proteins, metabolites, all of the fundamental building blocks of life.
Wow.
And researchers are using GeneLab to look at how these building blocks are affected by space, things like microgravity and radiation.
Okay. So can you give me an example? Like, how could this research be applied?
Absolutely. So, for example, the immune system,
Oh, okay.
astronauts are more susceptible to infections when they're in space, right?
Right.
And so researchers have discovered that a specific gene responsible for immune response is significantly downregulated in microgravity.
Wow.
So this kind of insight could lead to new ways to protect astronauts' health during long missions.
That's incredible. So they're not just collecting data, they're actually using it to make discoveries.
Exactly. And the exciting part is their commitment to open science.
Oh.
All of this data is freely available to researchers all over the world, so it really fosters collaboration and speeds up scientific progress.
So anybody could contribute to unlocking these secrets.
Precisely, but let's take a step back for a second.
Okay.
How did GeneLab even come to be?
Yeah.
Well, it started with recommendations from the National Research Council back in 2011. They were calling for more research in space biology and putting more of an emphasis on genomics, and so NASA created GeneLab.
So it's a fairly new initiative then?
Yeah, relatively new, but they've made some really impressive progress. And they're not just relying on data from old missions either. GeneLab has its own state-of-the-art sample processing and a high-throughput sequencing lab.
What is high-throughput sequencing?
It's this revolutionary technology that allows scientists to analyze tons of DNA and RNA really fast.
Wow.
It's kind of like having a super-powered microscope.
I think
It lets them see the tiny details of gene expression and how it changes based on the space environment.
so they're not just collecting, they're also analyzing with cutting-edge technology.
Yeah, and that's a key part of GeneLab's mission, ensuring data quality and consistency. They're processing samples from all sorts of experiments going all the way back to 1995, from the International Space Station to the Space Shuttle program, and even some ground-based analogs.
So that's a wide range of data.
It is, and it can be tough to integrate data from so many sources.
Right.
But GeneLab is really meticulous in their approach to data curation.
Yeah.
They're standardizing protocols and pipelines, and that lets them make more accurate comparisons across different experiments and time periods. And this makes GeneLab such a valuable resource for researchers all over the world.
So it's not just a data dump.
No, not at all.
It's organized, it's carefully curated.
To help with scientific discoveries.
Exactly. And to encourage more collaboration and discovery, they had these great groups called analysis working groups.
Okay.
And we'll talk more about those next. But first, what has stood out to you so far about GeneLab?
Well, I think the commitment to open science is really inspiring.
Yeah.
Making all this data accessible to everyone is just amazing. And the high throughput sequencing technology,
Yeah.
it's just really impressive how technology is allowing us to explore the intricacies of life in ways that we couldn't have even imagined a few years ago.
I agree. And I think you'll be even more impressed when we learn more about these analysis working groups.
Right.
They're a great example of GeneLab's collaborative spirit.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's jump in. All right, so let's talk about these analysis working groups,
Okay.
or AWGs for
Yeah.
short.
They're kind of like these specialized think tanks for space biology. Each
Mm.
one focuses on a particular area like plants or animals, microbes, or even the way that different systems work together, like multi-omics and systems biology.
Okay, can you break that down for me? What is multi-omics and systems biology?
Sure, so it's a way of looking at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Imagine trying to understand a car.
Right.
But you're only looking at the engine. You'd miss out on how it works with the transmission, the wheels, the electrical system.
Okay.
Multi-omics and systems biology take a similar approach, looking at how all the different parts of a biological system work together, the genes, the proteins, the metabolites.
So instead of just focusing on one gene, they're looking at how everything connects and influences each other.
Exactly. And it's really important for understanding how life adapts to space. And these AWGs are made up of scientists from everywhere, government, industry, universities, you name it.
Well, that's a diverse group.
It is. And they all come together to tackle these big questions using data from GeneLab.
So how do they actually work together?
Well, they mostly collaborate remotely using online platforms to share their findings, discuss results, even decide on the best ways to analyze the data.
Huh.
It's a truly global effort, all united by this common goal of, understanding space biology.
And what kind of discoveries are they making?
Oh, tons of fascinating stuff. They've made some really cool discoveries about how spaceflight affects the immune system, how plants grow differently in microgravity, and even how the microbiome changes.
Or the microbiome. What's that?
Oh, right. It's the community of microbes that live in and on us, like in our gut.
Oh, okay.
And one interesting finding is that the diversity of the gut microbiome decreases in space,
Hmm.
which could have implications for astronauts' digestive health and overall well-being during those long missions.
So by studying the microbiome, they might be able to find ways to keep astronauts healthier in space.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that these findings could also be applied here on Earth, potentially leading to new treatments for digestive disorders or helping us understand how to maintain a healthy microbiome in extreme environments here on Earth.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it seems like everything they're learning has the potential to impact both space exploration and life here on Earth.
Absolutely. And as they get more data and dig deeper into these findings, they're constantly expanding what GeneLab can do. In fact, they recently merged with the Ames Life Sciences Data Archive and the NASA Biological Institutional Scientific Collection.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is, but it's a big deal. They've created this even more comprehensive resource called the Open Science Data Repository, or OSDR for short.
Okay.
And it includes not just omics data, but also data from other types of experiments, things like phenotypic, behavioral, physiological, and even physical samples from previous studies.
So they're not just looking at genes and molecules anymore.
No, they're incorporating data about the whole organism and how it behaves.
Wow.
It's like going from a two-dimensional image to a 3D model. You get a much more complete picture of how life adapts to space.
And all of this is still guided by the principles of open science.
Absolutely. They're actively encouraging people to use this data through grants and collaborative projects.
Wow.
It's really a testament to the power of open science to drive innovation and accelerate scientific discovery.
This is really impressive. The scope and ambition of this project is amazing.
I agree, and we're already seeing the benefits.
Yeah.
GeneLab data has helped us understand biology, better advance genomics, and even helped in the development of new tools and technologies.
So we've talked about the what of GeneLab.
Right.
Now I'm curious about the why.
Okay.
What's the ultimate goal of all this research? It seems like GeneLab is doing so much to help us understand life in space. But I'm curious, how does all of this connect back to us here on Earth?
That's what's so cool about it. The research is focused on space, but it has implications that reach way beyond that.
Okay.
Think about it. Space is this extreme environment.
Right.
It really pushes life to its limits. So by studying how life adapts to these extreme conditions, we can gain these insights into like the fundamental principles of biology.
So we can use what we learn about how life survives in space
Yeah.
to help us understand life here on Earth.
Exactly. Take, for example, the research on muscle atrophy in astronauts.
Oh, right, because of microgravity.
Right. In microgravity, astronauts lose muscle mass much faster than they do on Earth.
Makes sense.
And by studying the genetic and molecular changes behind this, scientists could potentially develop new treatments for muscle-wasting diseases like muscular dystrophy, which affects millions of people.
So the research on astronauts could help people with muscle diseases here on Earth.
Exactly. It's incredible. And that's just one example. The potential applications span across so many fields like medicine, agriculture, environmental science, biotechnology.
Wow. Can you give me another example of something totally different?
Sure, let's talk about plants.
Okay.
Growing food in space is really challenging. But by studying how plants adapt to microgravity in GeneLab, scientists are learning how to optimize plant growth in these resource-limited environments.
So the knowledge could be used to improve agriculture here on Earth.
Yeah.
Places like deserts or drought-stricken areas.
Exactly. The insights from GeneLab could help us develop more resilient crops that can thrive in harsh conditions, and that could have a huge impact on food security and sustainable agriculture.
That's incredible. So GeneLab isn't just about exploring the universe. It's about using that knowledge to improve life here on our own planet.
That's a great way to put it. And this is just the beginning. As the database expands and new discoveries are made, the possibilities will just keep growing.
So if our listeners want to learn more about GeneLab or maybe even get involved themselves, where can they go?
I'm so glad you asked. The GeneLab website. genelab.nasa.gov is a fantastic resource.
Okay.
It's packed with information about their research projects. They have educational materials for students and teachers, and even ways to actually contribute to data analysis.
So anyone listening, whether you're a scientist or just someone who's curious about space and biology, you can check out GeneLab and learn something new.
Exactly. Everyone is welcome to join this exciting journey of discovery. And as we wrap up our deep dive into GeneLab today, I want to leave you with this thought. What other amazing discoveries are hidden within this vast database just waiting to be uncovered?
It really makes you think, and who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to make the next big breakthrough.
Maybe so.
So go ahead and explore GeneLab and let your curiosity be your guide. You never know what incredible secrets you might find.
You never know.
All right, that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.